Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 3 of chapter 6. Sorry for my notification. Behind the screen, controlling your digital tongue. And I think this is a really, really good chapter just because in this day and age, we're all over the internet. We're all over social media, no matter what the platform, including YouTube with our videos. So we got to be really careful how we talk to people. Let's start in with salty speech. So we were wanting to know what it meant to be seasoned with salt. In high school, my pastor did a message series on the Sermon on the Mount. At one point, Jesus states, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything, except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot." And that's from Matthew chapter 5, verse 13. My pastor devoted an entire message to explaining what being the salt of the earth meant. I had never considered the many uses of salt, especially in the ancient world of Jesus' day. So when I did a little research, I discovered even more about the many uses and significance of salt. Salt enhances flavor. Salt is the number one flavor enhancer in the world. People sprinkle it on their corn cobs, shake it on piping hot French fries, and add a dash to steaming bowls of soup. Salt is even sometimes put on sweet things to intensify their sweetness. My father always puts it on his watermelon or cantaloupe. The barista at my local coffee house cracks some sea salt on top of caramel, hot cocoa, and its mounds of whipped cream. And have you ever tasted dark chocolate with sea salt? Oh my word. Most traditional baked dessert recipes include salt. One time I forgot to add salt to a mint brownie recipe. When I tasted it, I could tell something was wrong. There was plenty of mint and cocoa powder, the two main flavors of the dish. But somehow it just didn't taste right. Even though the recipe called for only half a teaspoon, omitting the salt ruined the normally delicious treat. It takes only a little salt to coax out the wonderful flavor of other things around it. When it comes to your words, are you adding flavor? Are you bringing out sweetness in both your choice of words and in conversation with others, especially online conversations? Will you purpose to add the flavor of Christ instead of adding not just bland, but maybe even bad ingredients? Do your words add flavor? Salt preserves. I grew up with a mother and grandmother who did a lot of home canning. As a result, I also can a lot of produce each summer. Pickles, stewed tomatoes, apple butter, salsa, and my famous corn relish. Common to all these diverse food items is one ingredient: salt. Salt has always been used as a preservative. It helps to cure meat, keeping it from spoiling. When sailors in the 19th and early 20th centuries had to be out at sea for months, they existed on a diet of mostly salt-cured meats. While untreated meat will only last a day or so without refrigeration, meat preserved with salt can last with no refrigeration for 3 to 4 months. Every day we see evidence of a society decaying all around us. If you don't see it, perhaps you haven't been on the internet lately. And I'm not just talking about immoral and disturbing websites. It's evident in all the hateful and thoughtless comments we read on every form of social media. As Christians, we have to ask ourselves, do our words add to the decay? We are called to be the salt of the earth. Our words can help preserve the truth of God as we interact with others, in person and online. When you comment online, are you humbly and gently speaking truth, preserving the very words of God as you do so? Salt is valuable. Have you ever heard the phrase, worth his weight in salt? In generations past, salt was often used as currency. Because it was so essential for flavoring and preserving, it was also a valuable commodity. People traded goods in exchange for salt. Salt throughout the ages has been very valuable. Do your words online add value to the conversation at hand? Salt purifies and softens. When we lived in a house out in the country, we had what is commonly referred to as hard water because it had a very high mineral content. Before we treated the problem, our shower stall turned a light shade of rusty orange. The minerals also built up in the shower head, eventually making it difficult for the water to get out. And I had to work hard to scrub the mineral deposits off the walls of the shower and out of the bottom of the sinks. Then we got a water softener. Every so often we filled up the chamber of the softener with salt pellets. The salt pellets served two purposes. They softened the water by filtering out minerals that were causing a gunky buildup, and they prohibited the growth of bacteria in the water, helping to purify it. When it comes to your speech, are you exhibiting these properties of salt? Are your words soft? Are they pure? Or are they harsh and impure? Salt melts hard ice. Living in the Midwest for my entire life, I have seen many harsh winters. In fact, we are just coming out of one of the worst winters in the past 80 years. We had many sub-zero days, with wind chills sometimes 20 or 30 degrees below zero. And of course, we had snow. Lots of snow. In one 48-hour stretch, our 18 inches of snow fell. And just a few days before Christmas, we witnessed one of the worst ice storms of the century. Ice more than an inch thick encased trees and power lines, many of which came crashing down, knocking out electricity for nearly a week. With all this ice and snow every winter, my state of Michigan has to be well equipped with plows and salt trucks. After every storm, workers plow the snow and salt the roads to melt the ice. We also buy bags of salt to sprinkle on our own sidewalks and porches to melt the hard ice that forms there. People can be cold, icy cold. When you interact with them, do your words help to melt the ice or add to the chilly climate? If you are given the cold shoulder, do you give it right back? Or do you try to warm things up a bit by gently and respectfully engaging them with kind-hearted dialogue? When your words are carefully seasoned with salt, they may melt the iciest of hearts. Salt prevents infection in a wound. In the ancient world of Jesus' day, salt was often sprinkled on a wound to keep it from getting infected. Salt halted the spread of infection that could make the laceration increasingly more painful and cause it to take longer to heal. Sure, the salt stung for a moment, but it could also save the injured person's life if it prevented a runaway infection. At those times when we encounter gossip and rumors, we can choose to halt the spreading of the infectious words or scandalous stories by refusing to participate. And if we are brave enough to speak up and declare that we don't want to hear and certainly don't care to repeat what is being said, like salt, our words may sting for a moment, but our actions may help to squelch a rumor or stop the gossip before it spreads, infecting others and causing more pain. Sorry about that, guys. Bella knocked something over. Will you bravely speak up in an attempt to stop the spread of infectious speech before it causes even more pain? Or will you utilize silence, refusing to participate in a gossip session, and help to halt the destructive dialogue that is happening? Too much salt destroys the dish. We've talked a lot about watching our words online, about making sure they don't start or even escalate a fight, about how our words should be soft and pure, They should add value to the conversation and be flavored with the character of Christ. But sometimes a Christian can overdo the salt. Sometimes we may be called upon to speak the truth as it is found in Scripture. In those moments, remember that a little salt goes a long way. Answer with gentleness and respect. Keep your comments brief and humble. Carefully tailor your words to the situation and person at hand, rather than dumping the contents of your salt shaker all over the place. Remember, too much salt not only destroys the dish, but can also sour a relationship. Will you choose to keep your comments truthful yet tight, so as not to preach or condemn, coming off holier than thou? Common table salt, sodium chloride. How many uses there have been through the ages. Salty speech is crucial if we want to be like Jesus. But please, don't let the many uses of salt and the spiritual parallels overwhelm you. Maybe try to work on one or two areas at a time. As you reflect on the many uses of salt, do so with an attitude of prayer. Ask the Lord to reveal which characteristic of salty speech you most need to work on in the days ahead. Using your digital tongue wisely. No doubt this week, perhaps even today, you will have an opportunity to use your digital tongue. Maybe you will tweet or hop on Facebook to chime in on a conversation. Maybe you'll watch somebody's video here on YouTube. Maybe you'll make your own video. Perhaps you will leave comments on a blog. When you do, what kind of words will you use? Here is a little challenge from Scripture to help us keep our tongues in check. My mouth speaks what is true. From my lips detest wickedness. All the words of my mouth are just. None of them is crooked or perverse. Proverbs chapter 8, verses 7 and 8. Yes, this is a high standard, but I say we should shoot for it. There is an old saying, if you aim for nothing, you will hit it every time. Let's not be aimless when it comes to our online words. Let's seek to make them pleasing to God and encouraging to those who read them. Thank you for joining me for today's video. That concludes chapter 6, and we will get into chapter 7 tomorrow. I hope you've all had a very wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.